In the early 2000s, prequels were all the rage. You had the Star Wars prequels, you had Smallville, you had the Scorpion King, you had Kermit's Swamp Years. Given that context, with juggernauts like those dominating popular culture, it makes sense that, with Star Trek Voyager winding down, the producers of the Star Trek franchise would decide to make their next series a prequel to the shows and films that had been made up to that point. So that's what they did. Mostly. While Star Trek Enterprise, or as it was originally titled before the producers lost their nerve, simply Enterprise, is primarily set around 100 years or so prior to the events of Star Trek the original series, which definitely makes it a prequel, it also includes an ongoing storyline involving what is called the Temporal Cold War, the belligerents of which originate in the 28th, 29th, and 31st centuries, which makes it, at least as far as the Temporal Cold War story arc is concerned, a sequel to the rest of the franchise at that point. So it's a prequel and a sequel. It's a pre-sequel? A seprequel? It's a prequel with some sequelish tendencies. But should it have been? Did this story arc result in any particularly memorable episodes? Did it go anywhere? Have anything interesting to say? Resolve in a satisfying fashion? Was the Temporal Cold War a good idea? Or was it a waste of time? Right? Come on. Actually, maybe I should back up a step or two and ask, whose idea was it? According to series co-creator and executive producer Brannon Braga, the Temporal Cold War was added to the show at the request of Paramount studio executives, who were apparently uneasy about the show being a prequel. So, if you ever felt like the Temporal Cold War stuff didn't really fit in with the rest of the show, like it was just kind of tacked on, that's because it was just kind of tacked on to appease the studio. Fun bookend to that story. According to John Billingsley, the actor who plays Dr. Phlox on the show, one of the reasons the Temporal Cold War story was dropped in Enterprise's fourth and final season was to appease the studio. So they tacked it on to make the studio happy, and a few years later they hacked it off, also to make the studio happy. Doesn't producing a television series sound like fun? We're introduced to the Temporal Cold War in the first episode of Enterprise, Broken Bow, where Captain Archer learns of the existence of the Cabal, a group of genetically enhanced Suliban who have been attempting to instigate a civil war within the Klingon Empire. Why does the Cabal want to start a Klingon civil war? Because this guy told them to. And who is this guy? Let's move on. Midway through Enterprise's first season, we meet Daniels, a temporal secret agent from the 31st century who has been aboard Enterprise, living undercover as a crewman. Daniels is apparently killed in his first episode, Cold Front, but time travelers don't let a little thing like death stop them, so Daniels reappears occasionally throughout the rest of the series to dispense exposition about what's going on with the Temporal Cold War and why anyone's supposed to care, and give Archer assignments. One of those assignments involves sending Archer and T'Pol back in time to Earth in the year 2004 in the episode Carpenter Street. We open on this guy, Loomis, who lives in Detroit in 2004. He gets a phone call from Dameron, a Xindi reptilian. Dameron's like, hey, need you to go kidnap another hooker. Loomis is like, you got it, and he goes out and kidnaps another hooker named Georgia. Meanwhile, in the 22nd century, Archer is playing with his dog when Daniel shows up and says, so there are some Xindi on Earth in 2004. They're not supposed to be there, don't know what they're doing, but we need you to go back and get them. Why can't you do it? I thought protecting the timeline was your job. It is, but getting authorization takes forever. It's a whole thing. Anyway, you really need to go back there and stop those Xindi. They're kidnapping hookers, so it must be pretty serious. So Archer wakes up T'Pol, they change into some street clothes, and Daniels pops him back to Detroit in 2004, where they immediately get into the local spirit by stealing a car and robbing an ATM. Before too long, they locate the warehouse where Loomis has been bringing the people he abducts so that Dameron can do whatever he's doing, steal their blood or something. Loomis doesn't really know, and he doesn't care because he's being paid. Loomis has been told to abduct people of each blood type, which he is able to do thanks to his day job working at a blood bank. Dameron tells Loomis that they need to move up the schedule, so he's gonna have to bring in people with the last 2 blood types by tomorrow. Loomis is like, I think we should wait a little longer, because any minute now the cops are going to figure out that all these missing people were patients at my blood bank, and then I'm going to be in a lot of trouble, because I'm pretty sure you're a terrorist, and I don't know if you've noticed, but America is in kind of an anti-terrorism place at the moment. Dameron goes, we'll give you lots more money, and Loomis is like, okay, sounds good. Archer and Temporal catch Loomis leaving the warehouse, and they follow him back to his apartment. He tries to get away down the fire escape the first time they knock on his door, but Temporal gets in front of him and drops him with a neck pinch. Back in his apartment, Loomis spills his guts to Archer and Temporal, who Loomis thinks are cops. He says he's never actually seen Dameron's face. They communicate over the phone, and Dameron always stays in the shadows when they meet in person. Archer glances at Loomis's files of possible future abductees and decides to pose as his next victim. But on the way to the warehouse, Loomis complains that he's hungry, so they stop at a drive-thru where we get to see Archer and Temporal order food through a speaker somewhat awkwardly. Because they're from the future, they're not used to asking an electronic device for food. After Loomis is done mauling his burger, they arrive at the warehouse and Loomis rolls Archer inside, telling Dameron that this is his B-negative subject. Archer pretends to be unconscious and listens in to what Dameron and his Xindi reptilian associates are talking about. When he figures out what they're up to, he calls Temporal with his communicator and fills her in. They're synthesizing some kind of biological weapon, and they've probably come to the past to hide from temporal agents while they work. Temporal suggests finding the Xindi's temporal beacon and destroying it, because without the beacon, they'll be stranded in the past. Archer finds and destroys the beacon. The Xindi catch him, there's a brief shootout, and Dameron and another Xindi make a run for it with the bioweapon they've been making. Archer tags the bioreactor and a Xindi he shot with special devices given to him by Daniels so they can be returned to the future, then takes off after Dameron. Loomis gets antsy and takes a swing at Temporal with a knife, but she handles him without too much trouble. Archer chases Dameron onto a roof, where Dameron threatens to release the bioweapon, which is a virus specially engineered to kill 3/4 of the human population. The plan was to modify the virus to be lethal to 100% of the population, but they never got those last 2 blood types, so best laid plans of mice and dino men. Dameron threatens to release the virus, but Archer shoots him and grabs the canister containing the virus before it rolls into a fan. Everybody returns to the 22nd century, including the Xindi and their equipment. Archer takes the virus to Dr. Phlox because he'll probably think it's neat. And back in 2004, Loomis gets arrested, babbling about lizard people and ray guns as the cops shove him into the back of the car. So, a happy ending. As evidenced by Carpenter Street, the temporal Cold War is deeply entangled with the events of Season 3, which is devoted to Enterprise's mission to prevent the Xindi from destroying Earth. Archer is tipped off as to the location of the Xindi by you-know-who also informs him that the Xindi were manipulated into attacking Earth to begin with by another faction in the temporal Cold War, the Sphere Builders, who want to use the Xindi to prevent the Federation from being founded because the Federation defeats them in the 26th century. Eventually, the temporal Cold War heats up into an all-out temporal war, and that war is settled once and for all in quite possibly the goofiest way imaginable in the 2-part episode that opens Enterprise's 4th season, Stormfront. So, at the end of Season 3, the crew of Enterprise had no sooner saved Earth from destruction at the hands of the Xindi, at the apparent cost of Captain Archer's life, when the ship found itself thrown back in time to the 1940s, with Archer, who was in fact alive, the prisoner of Nazi aliens. Or alien Nazis. Either way, it seems pretty bad. As the episode proper starts, Archer is being transported by some of the non-alien Nazis when the convoy is attacked and Archer is captured by a group of rebels led by this gangster guy. A while later, he wakes up in an apartment, being tended to by a woman named Alicia, and for a moment he's confused, like, where am I? Oh, God, I leaped again. Ow! Ow! Archer asks Alicia what year it is, and she says it's 1944. 1944? World War II. That's before I was born. I shouldn't be able to leap outside of my own lifetime. At least I didn't go all the way back to the Civil War, or all the way to the 22nd century this time. Ow! Ask Ziggy what went wrong. The crew of Enterprise has noticed the same thing Archer has. If it's 1944, Nazis aren't supposed to be in control of much of the United States. That's not meant to happen until the 21st century, which means someone has been mucking around in history. I'm going to guess it's those alien Nazis. I bet I know who can explain what's going on. Daniels! Oh, damn, but he's not looking so good. We'll get back to him. Meanwhile, the Nazis seem to have taken control of the eastern U.S. We've got Nazis living in the White House. Again, way ahead of schedule. And this human Nazi general is getting impatient with Vosk, the leader of the alien Nazis. The general is like, so where are those new sci-fi weapons you promised us? And Vosk says, oh, you know these things take time. On that subject, here's a list of a whole bunch more stuff I need. The general tells Vosk to hurry up because while the Nazis are on top now, there have been recent setbacks in the war. Vosk says, hey, if you're getting tired of waiting for the new sci-fi weapons, maybe you'd be interested in a virus that only kills Jews? The general's like, I would be very interested in that. And Vosk says, then get me the shit on my list by the end of the week. I've got my own genocides to worry about. You've got what? Nothing. Meanwhile, in Brooklyn, Archer meets with other members of the resistance cell. That includes Alicia and, apparently, the only two non-racist members of the Mafia. They've heard rumors about aliens working with the Nazis, too, so they arrange a meeting through one of the Mafia guy's contacts. They surround this alien guy in an alley, and Archer's like, what are you aliens doing here on Earth in the 1940s? And the alien guy goes, we're trapped here. And Archer says, why are you working with the Nazis? And the alien guy goes, because we need their resources to build a temporal conduit so we can return to our own time. And Archer says, where are you building the conduit? And the alien guy goes, I ain't saying nothing. So Sal, one of the Mafia guys, kills him. Archer is able to contact Enterprise using a device he took off the alien guy, and he and Alicia are beamed aboard the ship right before being captured by Vosk. The crew is happy to see that Archer is alive, because they thought he was dead this whole time, remember? And so is Porthos, who has been hanging out in sickbay with Phlox since Archer's been gone. Also in sickbay is Daniels, who is suffering from a condition where parts of his body are aging at different rates. So it's not like he drank from the wrong Holy Grail, but more like someone dipped their fingers in it and just kind of went like that at him. Anyway, Daniels has been on the brink of death ever since he showed up, but he sees Archer and he's like, Jonathan must deliver final lines of exposition. Daniels tells Archer that Vosk is who ramped the temporal Cold War up into a temporal war by inventing a new kind of untraceable time travel, which he used to defeat Daniels' fellow temporal agents. Daniels has brought Enterprise back to 1944 because it's at this point in history where Vosk can be defeated. If Archer can stop Vosk from building the conduit and returning to the future, it will prevent the temporal Cold War from ever happening, and all the changes that have been made to the timeline will be reversed. Then Daniels dies. Again. For now. Part 2 of Stormfront begins with a newsreel depicting Hitler's triumphant visit to the Nazi-held region of the U.S., The editors who put this bit together cleverly included a few shots from this very real American Nazi rally that took place at Madison Square Garden in 1939 and drew a crowd of over 20,000 people, reminding us that these time-traveling aliens didn't radically alter the course of history, but just kinda nudged it over to the right a bit. Vosk has captured Trip and Travis, and he contacts Archer asking for a meeting. Archer agrees and beams down. Vosk releases Trip and Travis, then he tries to convince Archer to help him complete the time conduit. Vosk is like, look, I'm sure Daniels told you I'm some kind of horrible person or whatever, but you've only heard his side of the story. You're literally a Nazi. Oh, come on. All I'm fighting for is the right to freely use time travel technology to alter the histories of societies to make them fit my idea of what they should be like. Does that sound like something a Nazi would say? I mean, yes. That sounds exactly like what a Nazi with a time machine would say. Which makes sense, because that's what you are. You're a time Nazi. I'm not a time Nazi. You're speaking to me while wearing a Nazi uniform, in command of Nazi troops. You've got a swastika on your arm right now. Okay, fine, I'm a time Nazi, but I'll make you a deal. You help me finish the time conduit, and when I get back to my own time, I'll undo all these changes to your timeline so you and your people can return to your home century and it'll be just like you remember. Everybody who's supposed to be there will be there. Even the Jews? Yes, absolutely. Okay, I'll think about it. Archer returns to Enterprise, and he's like, I just lied to that fucking time Nazi. We're not going to think about it. We're going to find his conduit and blow it up real good. And you're going to help us, Trip. Or should I say, Silik? Yeah, Silik, the time-traveling Suliban who works for the mysterious future guy, is here too. He swapped places with Trip, who is still being held prisoner at Time Nazi HQ. Silik, it turns out, is also here for Vosk's time conduit, though he doesn't want to destroy it, just steal the plans so that Future Guy can build one of his own and actually travel to the past instead of just projecting his image. Hold up, I need a second here. Future Guy sent Silik to stow away aboard Enterprise, knowing they were going to be sent back to 1944, so that Silik could steal the plans for Vosk's time machine and give them to Future Guy, so Future Guy could build his own time machine and travel back in time himself, instead of just time Skyping all the time. Have I got that right? Well, here's my issue with that. We know from previous appearances that Future Guy is supposedly from the 28th century. Shouldn't he have, at least 5 or 6 methods of time travel available to him just based on stuff we've seen in other Star Trek episodes? He can't do the slingshot around a star trick? He can't find some chronotons lying around and do time travel through the transporter? He can't get his hands on a Klingon time crystal? He can't make a red matter black hole? He doesn't have Carl's number? Okay, those last few weren't introduced until after Enterprise went off the air, but you get the broader point. Time travel in Star Trek ain't exactly hard to do. So I guess what I'm saying is there's obviously a logical reason behind everything Future Guy does. And just because we don't know what it is, that doesn't mean it isn't there. So maybe just don't worry about it. Just let things play out. Vosk and Archer have an argument, and Vosk shoots at Enterprise with his Nazi death ray. Silik agrees to help Archer break into Vosk's headquarters to find Trip and destroy the time conduit, because Silik is a bad guy, sure, but he's not like a Nazi. Come on. So Silik takes a human form and uses his Eugene Tomb superpowers to get him and Archer inside the Time Nazi facility. Then the Nazis find them and Silik gets killed, because this is the last Temporal Cold War episode and we are wrapping this shit up. Archer finds Trip and they make a run for it. Archer calls in Enterprise to blow up the Time Nazi facility, which it does, just before Vosk has a chance to step through the just activated conduit. Next thing he knows, Archer is standing around someplace outside of time, watching as stock footage of random events in history plays all around him. Daniels, looking much better, walks in for a last bit of exposition, telling Archer that the Temporal Cold War is over, or rather, never happened in the first place, and all the damage to the timeline it caused is being undone. Archer's like, great, but anything like this starts to happen again, just leave me and my crew out of it. We're all really tired of the Temporal Cold War stuff. And I personally am pretty sick of time travel in general. Between this and my last series, well, not exactly my last series. There was Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but that lasted, like a month? Anyway, get me out of here. Okay, fine, I'll leap you home. Thank you. Hey, end of series. No, it only feels like that. End of multi-season recurring story arc. But the question still remains. Was the Temporal Cold War a story even worth telling? I'm going to say no, for a few reasons. First and foremost, it doesn't result in any particularly good episodes. I know Carpenter Street is a favorite among some Enterprise fans, but I've never found it to be anything special. I certainly wouldn't rate it among the best episodes of Enterprise. Then again, I rarely found Enterprise to be anything special either, so I might not be the best person to ask. Second, whenever the Temporal Cold War story took front and center, which was only for a total of about a dozen episodes scattered throughout the run of the series, though it feels like more, doesn't it? It pulled the show away from the most interesting aspects of its premise. At the most basic level, Enterprise is a prequel. It's set a century earlier than any other Star Trek show. That means humans have explored far less of the galaxy, and the ship has an almost entirely human crew and officially represents only Earth, not the Federation, which doesn't exist yet. It also means the technology is far less advanced than in other Trek shows, and some of that is merely cosmetic. In terms of their function in the story, there's no meaningful difference between phase pistols and phasers, or polarized hull plating and shields, but it still helps to set the show apart from its predecessors. And some of it does make a difference in the way stories are told. When Enterprise begins, transporters exist, but they're mostly for moving cargo. They're only used on members of the crew if it's an emergency. That means a lot more shuttle landings and situations where, if the crew gets in trouble, getting to safety isn't as easy as flipping open your communicator and calling for a beam out. It also means the interiors of the ship look noticeably different from those of other Trek shows. This 22nd century Enterprise has tighter corridors, smaller cabins. Most surfaces are plain gray metal, unfinished, unpolished. Control consoles have mechanical switches, not the sleek touchscreens of the TNG era. Uniforms are functional blue jumpsuits with visible zippers and pockets more reminiscent of the flight suits worn by NASA astronauts than the colorful pajamas worn by most other Star Trek crews. Those are all cosmetic changes too, but they contribute to the aesthetic of the series, and it's an appealing aesthetic. It identifies Enterprise visually as a different kind of Star Trek show, a simpler, back-to-basics interpretation of a premise that, in 2001, after 4 live-action TV series and 9 feature films, was in dire need of a fresh take. In its best moments, and occasionally for entire episodes, Enterprise exemplifies that freshness, that sense of reinvention. But then the Temporal Cold War pops up again to remind us all that, actually, it's just another Star Trek show. It's nothing special or unique. It's just the next one of these. Because of its prequel premise, Enterprise needed to feel futuristic to us because we've never met any aliens and we can't build ships that can travel faster than the speed of light, but retro and low-tech compared to the rest of the Star Trek franchise, because that's what set it apart. Involving Captain Archer and company in time travel adventures that are often even more far-fetched than anything that ever happens to Captains Kirk, Picard, Sisko, or Janeway, negates the series' premise and undermines its most compelling and unique qualities. Third, and finally, it never even goes anywhere. After 3 years of occasional interference in 22nd century affairs from factions native to various other time periods and endless ominous exposition from Daniels, the Temporal Cold War culminates in a heavily padded, underwhelming 2-parter where Archer and the Enterprise crew, who just spent an entire season trying to stop evil aliens from building an ultimate weapon, have to stop another, different group of evil aliens from building another, different ultimate weapon, only this time it's in the 40s. No difficult moral choices, no unsolvable ethical quandaries, no painful personal sacrifices, just running around shooting at bad guys until they find the right building to blow up. That's basically all that happens through the 2 parts of Stormfront, and it couldn't be more boring. Enterprise blows up the building, a villain we just met and know almost nothing about is killed, and that's it. There's no catharsis. There are no consequences that alter the course of the series, unless you count the lack of episodes about the Temporal Cold War from this point on. There's no dramatic, meaningful resolution. There's just Daniels telling Archer that it's over. It's not the well-crafted conclusion of a compelling, emotionally involving story. It's the writers wrapping up a plot because they're sick of it. And in that sense, it's the perfect ending, because it's just what the Temporal Cold War deserved. It's such an underwhelming ending that this guy doesn't even show up for it. Of course, he's from the future, so he'd already seen the episode and knew it wasn't going to be all that great. Or hadn't been all that great. Wasn't going to have been all that. However you say it, that's the smartest guy in the whole story right there. I want to thank Sky Doto for commissioning this video. If you watched my recent video about Data's missing human experiences, you probably saw that I opened commissions for Not Actually Trek Actually videos. Well, the response was strong enough that now, a month later, I have to tell you that commissions are now closed because I'm all booked up for the rest of this year. So watch for another commissioned video next month and every month for the rest of this year. And when we get a little closer to 2023, I'll open commissions up again. Even though commissions are closed, you can still support this channel, and I wish you would, because I can't do this without support from my viewers. You can become a patron by going to patreon.com/Steve Shives, or become a channel member by clicking the join button right here on the YouTube page. Patreon pledges or memberships of any amount are greatly appreciated, but if you become a supporter at $5 a month or more, you get a shout out at the end of a Trek Actually video. And, of course, if recurring monthly support isn't something you can do right now, one-time donations through PayPal or Venmo are also always welcome. All the links are in the video description. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time. And yeah, I gotta go. Take care, folks. Hey, it's you. Fancy that. I just got done shooting that video we talked about. You know, I owe you a thank you. I was actually going to turn down that commission until you called and told me to accept it. It turned out to be a pretty good video, I think.
Excellent. Now, proceed as you would normally. I will make contact with new instructions when I have further need of you. In the future.
Sweet. I can't wait to find out who you really are and where all of this is going.
What?
You know, you never got around to it on Enterprise, but you're here now, and eventually you're going to reveal your identity and intentions, and the true shape of your plan will become apparent. I'm sure it'll be an exciting payoff that provides satisfying answers to all the questions raised by your previous appearances, and I'm really hyped about it.
Nice hat.
Thank you.
Anyway, I've got to go. I have other calls I need to make.
Oh, cool. Who are you calling next?
I'm calling President Lincoln.
To warn him not to go to Ford's Theater?
No, to make sure he goes.
What? Why?
To preserve the timeline.
Oh. But how does it preserve the timeline if Lincoln only goes to Ford's Theater because you told him to?
Beep. I've got to go. Someone else is calling.
Okay, just real quick, because I don't understand how it's preserving the timeline if you...
I've got to take this. It's Lincoln.
Why would he be calling you? And how? They didn't even have phones in 1865.